Alrighty. We should be live. This time it's gonna work because if it doesn't, then I'm gonna do mean things. I'm gonna freak out. Give me a second so I can get everyone the link. Alrighty. This is going to be the last one before we just straight up switch. Just straight up switch. This is going to work. I swear to you it's going to work. I'm closing the other chat. Okay. Jesus. I'm not even going to switch to the other screen because I think that's what's doing it. That's what might be cutting the stream in and out. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go to the other, sharing the calendar. We're just going to talk about it. So, for those of you guys who are coming in and watching this after the fact, this is the third iteration of this stream. We talked about DeAndre Hopkins and how I think that the New York Jets should absolutely go after DeAndre Hopkins. I think that that would be a great play by the New York Jets. I also talked about Buddah Baker and how I think the New York Jets shouldn't go after or even make a call on Buddah Baker. And it has nothing to do with Buddah Baker, the player, and has everything to do with the fact that, one, I think to trade for him is going to be significantly more expensive than people think. I think it's going to be a day 2 pick, a second or a third round pick, and that's way too much for a safety. But number 2, I think that he's also going to want to be paid as the highest safety in the NFL, which is exactly what he said, which is a $20 million contract. Now, the last thing that I wanted to get in my monologue before I started communicating with the chat has to be about the Woody Johnson news, about him possibly holding up the deal and all of that aspect of it. And we're going to debunk this by literally just looking at the timeline. So the first thing that I wanted to say is the thing that we need to understand when it comes to the reporting of all of the stuff that's going on when it comes to the New York Jets is that, one, it seems to me that when you look at the situation with Charles Robinson, and specifically when we look at the situation with Charles Robinson in the light of, hey, maybe there is it seems like he's getting his information from inside of the Green Bay building. That's, I guess, the best way for me to say it. It seems like all of his inside sources, all of his everything is coming from inside of the Green Bay facility. And when we look at that, we have to take everything that he says with a grain of salt, because if you look at his reporting just objectively. So let's start by talking of the fact that before the New York Jets executives, so Woody Johnson and the coach and the GM and the cap shenaniganery guy and Nathaniel Hackett and everyone flew to meet with Aaron Rodgers. This was March 7th was when the New York Jets flew to California to meet with Aaron Rodgers. The report out of Charles Robinson, who is a Yahoo Sports reporter, says that the New York Jets had agreed to the parameters of a trade before flying out to California to meet with Rodgers. He thinks, and this isn't him saying that he knows, he thinks that it was for a third-round pick this year and a first-round pick next year. That is what he thought the trade was preliminarily agreed upon, and that it was going to be a straight-up, no protections, no nothing. And he believes, again, this is his belief, that the talks were extensive and that it whittled down into that zone. Those are his exact words, right around the time that the California visit was to happen. And so the Jets fly out to California on the 7th to meet with Aaron Rodgers. Then the 8th and the 9th happen without any news, anything. And then according to Aaron Rodgers, from when he spoke on the Pat McAfee show, he informed the Green Bay Packers of his intentions to play for the New York Jets on Friday, March 10th. Right? Remember that he doesn't go on McAfee until the 15th of March. That is 5 days between the 10th and the 15th. Now, here is where this story doesn't hold up, because on the 15th of March was when he made the comment, I was 90% retired going into the dark. And that is when Charles Robinson goes out and quotes and says, I think the 90% comment really spooked Woody. I really do. If this is just a 1-year window, we're not giving up a 1. And that's what he believes was what Woody Johnson says. That being said, why, if a deal was in place, if the parameters of the deal were agreed upon before the flying out on the 7th, if that was the reality of it, and on the 10th, Rodgers informs Green Bay and the New York Jets that he wants to be a New York Jet, and the parameters of the deal are already in place. And remember that the key point of this argument is that the comment of the 90% retired, what was the thing that instigated Woody Johnson pulling out of the deal. Why didn't the deal get done on the 10th, on the 11th, on the 12th, on the 13th, the first day of free agency, on the 14th, or even on the 15th before he went on McAfee? What held up the trade? What's more likely in this scenario? That the Jets just delayed the trade for 5 days? That they spent 5 days negotiating a contract that was whittled down? According to Charles Robinson, earlier in his interview, he said, right around the time of the visit, there were pretty extensive talks that whittled it down into that zone, referring to a 3rd-round pick and a 1 next year. If that was the case, and he informed the Green Bay Packers that he wanted to be a Jet on the 10th, that gave the Green Bay Packers and the New York Jets Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and even the beginning parts of Monday to negotiate a deal so that they could both go into free agency with, 1, Green Bay knowing what picks that they were going to have, but 2, the New York Jets having their franchise quarterback. Why would Woody, Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh want to wait and delay that if they had already agreed onto the parameters of a deal? It doesn't make sense. The timeline doesn't match up. What I think actually happened is that the New York Jets, the parameters of the trade are discussed going into that flight to California the week before. The Jets fly to California and get a gauge of what Aaron Rodgers wants, what his whole idea is, and everything like that. And then the New York Jets come back and they say, cool. And I never think that a 1st-round pick was in the play. Joe Douglas isn't dumb. He wasn't going to give a 1st-round pick for a 39-year-old quarterback with a massive contract with a huge dead cap hit on the back end of it. You can talk about, we can talk about other GMs, and we can talk about other programs, and we can talk about other teams or whatever. This isn't the Joe Douglas. Joe Douglas is one of the smartest GMs in the NFL. He knows value, he knows when to pull out, and he knows what's best for his team. He doesn't care about the short-term success if it means mortgaging the future. He's going to do what's right for the team without getting reckless. And sending a 1st-round pick for a 39-year-old quarterback is reckless, especially if it's an unconditional 1st-round pick. And Joe Douglas would never do such a thing. So for me, I think that the deal that originally was in place was 2 seconds, a second this year and a second next year, straight up. And when all of that happens, Green Bay, because remember, the report came out originally at the beginning that Green Bay was the one that pulled out of the deal, that Green Bay was the one that went back on the deal and now started demanding a 1st-round pick. This just seems like smokescreen season to try to make the Jets look bad, according to Green Bay so that they can walk away as the winners in this whole situation. So there is that piece. There is my bit there when it comes to, that whole situation. And that is my belief of what's happening. I don't buy it. The timelines don't match up at all. I think the team that's more likely to be in this situation of pulling out of the deal and trying to get more out of the deal is Green Bay, because Green Bay needs to walk away from a Hall of Fame quarterback and look like they're doing it as winners. And the easiest way to do that is if you get a first-round pick. And that's what it all adds up on, is the team that's truly, yes, the New York Jets are desperate in this situation. There is no other option outside of Aaron Rodgers, right? But so are the Green Bay Packers. And I'm going to debunk this right now before I get these in my comments. There are no other teams interested. So don't even write that comment. If another team was interested in Aaron Rodgers, why haven't they made the call yet? What is stopping any of the 30 other NFL teams in the league from calling Green Bay to request some kind of information on Aaron Rodgers? It hasn't happened. The one time Green Bay even tried to push that narrative through Charles Robinson again, that the 49ers were interested, the 49ers beat reporters immediately came out and said, from all of the sources that I have, nobody in the building is interested in going after Aaron Rodgers. If there is another trade partner out there, Green Bay, go and find them. Why would you only negotiate with the New York Jets? If there's another team, get them in the bidding war. Right? Like, why wouldn't you? It's bad business to only negotiate with one team. It doesn't make sense, especially if you're the one with the asset. Go get as many sellers as possible. Go get as many competing bids as possible. That is basic business 101. And if Goody doesn't know that, then he's just a bad GM. So, I don't think that Goody is a bad GM. Well, I don't think he's a good GM, but I don't think he's dumb enough to say, no, I'm only going to deal with the New York Jets because blah, blah, blah. If there's another team that would be interested, he would have that conversation with the other team. The problem is there is no other team interested. You only have one dance partner. There's only one person on the card, and that's the New York Jets. Now, I think that tinfoil hat on at this moment, I think the Roger Goodell is in here talking about, like, hey, you're not allowed to trade Rodgers until the draft day because this is going to dominate the headlines for the next 2 weeks. And we know that this is the dead period for the NFL. And also, it makes a lot of sense for Green Bay if the pick at 43 going to Green Bay is only announced that it's going to Green Bay when the pick is happening, because it prevents a team from jumping up to 41 to 42 to try to get in front of Green Bay, because we all kind of know what Green Bay needs, and that makes a ton of sense there. But let's say hello to some people in the chat. Vervain, what's going on? Dom C in the house. Maple Leafs, hell yeah, go Leafs go. We'll talk about that later. Third time's the charm. Nick Shine, absolutely. Larry, I would disagree with you on D-Hop. Focus on offensive line, linebacker, defensive tackle, and safety. One, I don't think the New York Jets are going to get a safety. I think that's a pipe dream that the New York Jets fans have kind of created for themselves. I think that the New York Jets feel more than adequately comfortable with Tony Adams, Will Parks, Chuck Clark, and Jordan Whitehead. And to be honest, I do too. I don't need superstar safety talent when it comes to that room. And relatively speaking, I think a combination of those four guys is going to be more than adequate when it comes to that, because like either way you cut it, when you look at putting guys at strong safety or free safety or whatever combo that you want to do, it makes sense that it would make sense that they would run with that. Now, I'm not saying that they don't draft a guy but I wouldn't expect it. Like, if the New York Jets take a safety, my expectation, it's going to be the last pick in the draft. It's going to be picked in the 6th round. I think it's like 204 or 147. I don't remember what the pick is that the New York did, the last pick, but that would be my expectation there. And I think you're absolutely right. Offensive line, linebacker, and defensive tackle are all needs. We have the 13th overall pick. There goes your offensive lineman. We have the 43rd and 42nd pick as of right now, but my expectation is that we only have the 42nd pick. There's your offensive center right there, and then we don't have a third. And then in the fourth round, boom, there you go, is your linebacker that you could probably walk away with, or you can flip it around if you really fall in love with a guy like Dion Henley, who I think would be insanely talented. That's an option that you can definitely do. And I think that there's an interesting tidbit specifically on the linebacker room coming and being reported by Zach Blatt of The Athletic. And his exact quote is, Jets fans want the team to re-sign Quan Alexander. And that's still a possibility. But for now, I think it's more likely that Joe Douglas tries to find a rookie to develop into the CJ Mosley eventual replacement. And I totally agree. I think we already have the CJ Mosley replacement, possibly in Jamien Sherwood. I think that man is ready to take the next step in his NFL career, and I absolutely think that that's a place where we can go and that the New York Jets can pivot to when it comes to like the draft and all of that. But like, that makes a ton of sense. So there goes your linebacker, whether it's in the second round or it's in the fourth round. We don't need a starting linebacker. We need linebacker depth. And then with a defensive tackle, remember, we have limited picks. So my expectation is that we're probably going to wait until after the draft, and we're going to sign another defensive tackle. That makes a ton of sense in my mind. Guys like Al Woods and other guys are still going to be available. I think the signings are going to slow down a ton right now, and we just need depth, right? We've got our two starters. We got Quentin Williams, and we got Quentin Johnson. That makes a ton of sense in my mind. So we really just need that third guy who's going to come in for 30 to 40% of the snaps, and Al Woods makes a ton of sense there. And so there you go. That's all of those things taken care of, and then you can still go out and get DeAndre Hopkins. Like, I think a lot of people think in finalities when it comes to these players, and they like to think, oh, I have to get either this or that, and that's just not the reality of the situation. If you can do both, like, go do both. And it's like our good friend Buffalo Jet fan says, if you can, you don't win Super Bowls by stopping at need. So there you go. Dark Soldier in the house. Jesse P., a member of the Talking Jets with Tigo Navy, dropping some of the Talking Jets with Tigo emotes in the house. If you want to be a part of the giveaway, if we can get to 15 members before the draft, or you know what, I'm going to keep it. And once we get to 15 members, I'll be giving away a t-shirt giveaway of the draft, a t-shirt jersey of the player of your choice. And I'll send it to you, and I'll ship it out to you, and all that stuff. It costs less than a cup of coffee a month. Boom, the Talking Jets with Tigo Navy. Hit the join button down below if you want to learn more. That is there. Let's keep going. I just don't buy it. Did Woody not discuss it with Rodgers when they met? Has no one spoken with his agent on it? If we're acting like this, then we'd have to assume AR said he doesn't know about 2 years. That's also true. Like, this is a great point, Rico. Was this not discussed at the... What did they talk about when they flew? It just legitimately doesn't make sense. This timeline doesn't make sense. What did they just talk about the darkness retreat and ayahuasca the whole time? You have to talk about his career. You have to talk about the longevity of his career and all of those things. Like, I don't get it. I don't get where this report comes from and why, again, so many Green Bay Packers fans are falling for it because, like, of course they are. But, yeah. Rodgers even said in the interview on McAfee that the Packers were dragging their feet after he told them where he wanted to go. That's another thing. I didn't even remember this, Howie. You're absolutely right. They started it. More debunking. More debunking. Beautiful. What does Woody know about football decisions? He's letting JD work his magic. For real. The dude came out and essentially shot Joe Douglas in the foot saying, go get our guy. So now he goes from go get it, I'll write the paycheck, I don't care, to don't give up a first round pick. Like, that's just not Woody. Woody doesn't get involved in the minute decisions of football, like the football decisions of player personnel and all that stuff. Because if he did, Zach Wilson would be our starter. Because Zach and Woody are like their families are really close. And Zach and Woody's like, go get Rodgers. Like these stories are coming from a perspective of people who aren't intimately familiar with the New York Jets and the organization and what's going on. So this is a great point. I don't buy that the deal was already set to go. I think they were talking. Rodgers was not committing to a second year, and that's when we started having a disconnect. It makes a ton of sense, actually. Honestly, weighing the worst-case scenario for both teams, our coaching GM suffers, but the Packers, their team suffers. The nuclear option hurts them more. The thing that needs to happen is Aaron Rodgers, and I know that he won't, but the thing that would ultimately help this is Aaron Rodgers needs to show up to the facility on Monday. For those of you who don't know, off-season workouts are starting this week. On Monday, voluntary workouts are starting, and a lot of the players and whatever are expected to go. And again, it's voluntary, it's non-mandatory at all, but Aaron should go. If it really is that a deal has stalled and it's not that the deal is in place and they're waiting for draft day to happen, if the reality is that the deal has stalled, Aaron should go to he should be there Monday morning. I would. Because if he's there Monday morning, now they have a $60 million liability in the workout room. Because if he gets hurt, they're on the hook for $110 million. Happens every year. Someone gets hurt during voluntary workouts. If he gets hurt, his value tanks. And now they go from being able to get a second-round pick this year and a second-round pick next year. That could be a one. That could be a one. And then the possibility of losing a third-round pick in 2025. Instead of taking that haul, what? They just put him on IR and pay him $60 million? Put him on the bench and pay him $60 million? And while the Green Bay Packers are effectively going into a rebuild year, I like to call it an evaluation year because they need to figure out what they have in Jordan Love. They're just going to keep him on the... Like, it just doesn't make sense. Both teams need this deal to go through, and so it'll go through. The deal is done. They've agreed to this delay. I agree. I think so, too. Dark Soldier, I like Quan. I liked him, too. Don't want to bring him back, though. Don't want to bring him back. Hagen in the house, one of my favorite Packers fans. Been having a hard time with Packers Nation, buddy, in the last couple of weeks. You got to get your boys under control. Got to get your boys under control. I want Quan back. I would have signed him before Quincy. I wouldn't have. Quan played in a very, 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 very limited role, and it has nothing to do with me not, like, my not wanting Quan has nothing to do with Quan the player. I liked Quan. He was a great spark plug for this team. It's just Quan the player at the money that he's asking for. And then Quan's utilization last year. Like, you got to remember, like, I think people are overhyping what Quan Alexander actually did for this football team. He was a rotational linebacker that played in the mid to high 30s or low 40s when it comes to the snap count percentage. If you take away the 3 games he started when Quincy got hurt, he was in the 30s to 40% of the snap count, and he was okay in that role. He wasn't spectacular. He wasn't game-breaking. He was okay. And when he was on the field, he was electric. He was dropping big hits, all of that stuff. But for the projected money that he wants, I can't justify that, especially when you look at our team and fundamentally how we run our defenses. Fundamentally, we play nickel coverage. So for those of you who don't know the ins and outs of football, nickel coverage means you get rid of your third linebacker. So your Sam. So we play a base 4-3 defense. right? Which means you have 4 defensive linemen, 2 ends, and 2 defensive tackles. And then 3 linebackers, a middle linebacker, a will linebacker, and a Sam, right? Stands for middle, weak, strong, and that's what you play. Now, the New York Jets tend to play a nickel coverage. Now, what does that mean? It's called a nickel because you get rid of a linebacker. It tends to be the Sam. You get rid of a linebacker, and you bring in a 5th defensive back. 5 DBs, nickel coverage, boom, now you get it. And that is what, generally speaking, the New York Jets do. They play a ton of nickel coverage, and we, instead of playing the 3rd linebacker, are more likely to play Michael Carter II as that 3rd linebacker to cover a wide receiver if they come out in 11 personnel, or we send Michael Carter to the bench and we bring out Will Parks if they come out in 12 personnel. And the expectation is that Will Parks covers tight ends, Michael Carter II covers wide receivers. Boom. It's plain and simple. And when you take that into consideration, the fact that Michael Carter II is playing 70% of the defensive snaps and Quan Alexander is playing like 35, it literally matches up perfectly with that evaluation. If we actually line up in our base 4-3 defense, Quan Alexander is out there. That being said, we tend to play nickel coverage a ton. And so that's where I look at it, and I can't justify spending like $5 million, which is what is rumored that Quan Alexander wants. I can't justify spending $5 million on a guy who's going to play like 35 to 40% of the snaps, especially when we have guys like Jamie and Sherwood in the background. I think he's ready, and can he play 30% of the snaps? Absolutely. When he subbed in for CJ Mosley, he was at the ball constantly. He was a heat-seeking missile to the ball. That being said, is he a perfect linebacker? No, of course not. He's a safety converted to linebacker. He still has to get some of these linebacker tendencies doing better, like specifically shedding shedding blockers. He's really bad at that. If a blocker gets his hands on him, he's like out of the play immediately. But that being said, like I'd be cool with dealing with that because he's cheap. And I really like Jamian. And I have no beef with Quan. It's just that Quan is going to want a ton of money. And the reason you sign Quincy is because, one, he's younger and he doesn't have that injury history that Quan has, which is absolutely terrifying still. Last year he played in a limited role, and I think that's why he lasted. But when you got teams like the Houston Texans out there who have the money and probably willing to pay him, and he has familiarity with the system, because remember, he was in San Francisco when D'Amico was there, makes a ton of sense. So, I would say our linebacker room is fine, specifically if you add a rookie. Go get a Deion Henley in the 2nd round. Go get a DeMarvion Overshown, probably goes in the 3rd, but like go get one of these guys in like the 3rd or in the 2nd or the 4th round. And there you go. You've got a really solid linebacker room because you really only need like 4, maybe 5 linebackers when it comes to that. Marcel Harris is still out there, and he played pretty good when the Jets needed him in a pinch. And so, like, you draft a linebacker to replace Quan. You can bring back Marcel Harris for $1 million. There you go. Easy breezy, beautiful cover girl, and your linebacker room is more than adequate. So that's what I would do. Haider Ali in the house. Salah's defense is like San Francisco's, designed to work around their strengths. Salah's defense is built like San Francisco around a great defensive line rotation and pass rush also around your best group. In San Francisco, that is D-line and linebackers right now. Our defenses, it's D-line rotation and cornerbacks. Absolutely. And we do everything in our power to highlight that. Hence why we run a ton of nickel coverage. And doing that all of the time. Where did the San Francisco 49ers absolutely struggle last year at defense? They had one of the worst cornerback rooms, like just actually one of the worst defensive back rooms, just period. Last year, like the safety, there was a disconnect between the safeties and the corners, and I think that just the corners were bad because I actually think the safeties were pretty adequate, and there was a disconnect there, and they still had one of the better defenses in the NFL, and that was because, just like Haider Ali is saying here, and this sums it up perfectly, they focused on making sure that the defensive line and the linebackers were solidifying the team. They were creating, they have an elite pass rush, so they were creating pressure quick enough that they could compensate for the fact that our defensive line, that their defensive backs weren't adequate. When you look at the fact that our cornerbacks are covering long enough and our defensive line is creating pressure quick enough, those two things match up beautifully. There you go. Rico the Pup, I just think our defense isn't built around needing insane linebacker play. We think 49ers got Warner and Greenlaw, so that must be our thing, but it really isn't. This is another great comment, Rico. Like, again, the linebackers are such an important part of what the defense does, but we need just average linebacker play. Like, we're elite. Like, the thing that people need to remember is that we're elite up the middle of the defensive line with Quinn and Williams. We're elite on the outsides. Elite on the outsides with Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, and Michael Carter. Like, all we need is average line safety play. And I'm not going to sit here and say that, like, we had that last year, but how much of the play last year, like, what are the real complaints at our safety position? It was LaMarcus Joyner just existing, and it was Jordan Whitehead's tackling. The rest of Jordan Whitehead's play, outside of his inability to wrap up, he's got like a 30% like missed tackle rate. It blows my mind. How do you miss that many tackles? How do you make it to the NFL missing that many? It's insane. But what happens if you just put Jordan Whitehead in coverage? Didn't he have like 3 dropped interceptions? Like, he was pretty average last year in coverage. I'm just saying. Buffalo Jet fan, what's going on, Kevin? Tigo, can your green lightsabers defeat the onslaught of Packers bloggers? There's nothing that can defeat the Packers bloggers, my guy. They have gone up in full force. They have embraced the dark side of the force. I think it's just time for us to join them and just join the dark side of the force, fight evil with evil, and it's your mom jokes. It's just time to just get nasty. Boom, we're back. But yeah, no, nothing's stopping the Packers bloggers, my guy. They are in full force, especially this recent one, believing the whole Woody Johnson pulled the plug on the deal, even though there was 5 days since he told the Packers that he wanted to be a Jet, and then the Pat McAfee interview. We need our Warner 100%. His name is CJ Mosley. I'm not saying that he's as good as Warner, but that's what he is. Boom. As you continue to add premium defenders, they expand. How and what defenses can do as a player grows in a system, you add more and more to that D. Usually that starts and expands in year 3. We shall see. This is a great point, Hater Ali. What round do you think Dorian Williams goes? Oh, man. Let me pull up my big board. Let me see where I put him. Because I haven't been looking at linebackers because I don't know how in love the New York Jets are with linebacker. Or specifically how much they believe in that linebacker position. Dorian Williams out of Tulane, 22 years old, 6'1", 220. Isn't he? So I've got let me just double check this. I gotta make sure. Yeah, so I've got like a 3rd round grade on him. He can go as high as the 2nd. He can go as low as the 4th. He's probably a top of the 3rd round kind of guy. There is also the possibility that he could go at the bottom of the 2nd if we see a run on the linebackers. I think the moment a team pulls the trigger on a guy like Jack Campbell or Deion Henley, who is my projections to be the first linebackers off the board, then you're going to see a team take Drew Sanders, then you're going to see a team take Trenton Simpson, then you're going to see a team take DeMarvion Overshown, and like Dorian Williams. Again, all of those guys are just going to go. Remember when we saw the run on wide receivers in the 1st round? Same kind of thought process in my eyes of what we're going to see with the linebackers. I think the teams are going to hold off, and then they're 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 going to hold off, and then boom. The moment the first team pulls the trigger on Deion Henley, and I would keep my eye out for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the second round. Not with that, maybe even with that 33rd pick that they got in the Chase Claypool trade, but I'm talking about their second round pick. They might pull the trigger on one of these linebackers in the second, and that'll start the domino effect that is, boom, they take Jack Campbell, boom, Deion Henley goes, boom, Drew Sanders go, then Trenton Simpson. And so, yeah, that's how I would do it. Now, if a guy like a Dorian Williams or DeMarvion Overshown or Noah Sewell or Henry 2020, if those guys are there in like the 4th or the 5th round, I would be super interested in them. I am a real big Noah Sewell, Henry 2020 guys. I think those guys have the skill sets and the ability to be linebackers in the New York Jets system, and I think that there'll be late picks that can shine and do well and can develop, and they're both really young. I think Noah Sewell's only like 21 years old, and they fit around where I would be looking at taking a linebacker personally. Now, if you're like wanting to wait, like Ventrell Miller out of Florida, I believe he's met with the New York Jets, and there is some interest there. I believe the New York Jets have met with Muhammad Diabite out of Utah, and he should be available in like the 5th or the 6th round. So there are some guys that the New York Jets can go after. Servassier Dennis is another guy that I'm a big fan of. He graded out really, really well at the combine. So again, I don't think that there's this lack of ability at the linebacker position that we need to be desperate and reach for a guy. I don't think that the gap in the linebacker play is as large as it was in previous years. I don't think, while there is a pretty big gap between a guy like Deion Henley and a Servassier Dennis, who, like, let's say that's my floor, like that's the last linebacker that I would take. There's a lot of guys in that middle ground that I would be absolutely overjoyed with taking and doing all that stuff. And that's where I look at it, where like I haven't looked at the top end guys like outside of Jack Campbell, because I thought when we had a 2nd and a 3rd round pick, I thought we'd probably get our center in the 3rd and you can get a linebacker in the 2nd, and I fell in love with Jack. And then we did the Elijah Moore trade, so then my priorities had to shift because I fell in love with the centers and I stopped looking at the linebackers, and I fell in love with some of the late linebackers. It's been a whole thing, and we'll talk draft. And if you guys have any draft questions, let them go. We're a week away. 1 week from today, we're doing the draft. It's going to be awesome. Outside of Mosley, because of his McCagnon contract, I don't know what this means. I'm not sure what this means. Do you think the Rodgers trade will be traded on draft night? Absolutely. I think so. Dude, Mosley is here because of his albatross contracts. Patriots dink and dunk destroyed our run-stopping linebackers all year. Well, because we didn't get any help from the safeties, Jacob. Remember that in our system, the back seven is who's responsible for the run game and like the dink and dunk. And remember, our defense is built around bend, don't break. We shouldn't be. And towards the end of the year, we started doing this really, really well. We started not giving up the big chunk yards. And if we did give up big chunk yards, who did they go? Who was giving up those big chunk yards? And it was the same names. It was, I even forgot his name. What's the safety? Me and Buffalo Jet fan wanted to punt him to the moon. Someone remind me. Someone in the chat, hurry up. Who is it? Safety that played next to Jordan Whitehead. LaMarcus Joyner. Thank you, chat. It was LaMarcus Joyner giving up those plays. It was, the linebackers giving up those plays because they didn't get help from the safeties, or it was a miscommunication issue in the sense of, the corners are supposed to hand off a receiver to the safety so that they can take the underneath zone, and the safety didn't pick up that wide receiver. It was miscommunication errors and not ability errors. And that's, I think, the biggest point. When you look at our defense and the big plays that we gave up after, let's say after week 5, right? Because that's when our team started clicking. That's when our team was legitimately good. That's when our team was solid, and it was because the communication errors started to go away. And if you take away the fact that our safeties absolutely were no help in the run stopping, and they need to be, that would be elite. And so that's where, like, I think that's the failure to understand our defensive scheme is what's happening with a lot of our Jets fans, because like you're built into your mind to think of the team as a front seven and a back four, right? It's a defensive back room of corners and safeties, and those guys are supposed to cover the wide receivers, and then you have a front seven who is supposed to stop the run, right? And they're supposed to be the guys who handle the run and do that part of it. Well, that's not how our team works. That's not how our team does it. Our front four, their whole purpose is to get after the passer. The back seven is supposed to be responsible for stopping the run. That's why if you look at our team, we had such a high tackle rate from our corners, and like Michael Carter, DJ Reed, Sauce Gardner, they were tackling so much because their job and the responsibilities that they are asked to take on as tacklers is huge. Like it's massive. And the problem is that when the middle of your football field is really weak, specifically when you look at the strong safety position and the free safety position, who are supposed to act as pseudo linebackers in our system, all of your value goes away. All of the value that your linebackers provide goes away. All of the value that your safeties provide go away. And yes, we were weak up the middle of the field, but this is going to be the third year in the system. CJ Mosley was actually pretty good last year, but he was doing it by himself. And that's the problem. He was the only guy in that middle of the field that was doing anything. Now, when you add Chuck Clark to the middle of that field, boom. Like, Chuck Clark is a linebacker essentially, and he's going to do great things for this team. And just the addition of Chuck Clark and the removal of LaMarcus Joyner changes this defense, specifically the middle of the defense, drastically. Like, drastically changes that. And so, yeah, there you go. Speaking of linebacker play, DeMarvion Overshown seems to have fallen out of favor by the mock draft community. If he falls, now that would be an heir apparent to CJ. I think Henley goes in the second. Yeah, Deion Henley for sure goes in the second. He's probably going to end up being the first linebacker taken. And I don't know. I think that, like, he was according to a lot of the places that I'm looking, his draft stock hasn't really fallen at all. He's been in the same range since the end of the season, since the end of the year, right? Since December hit and we really started evaluating the tape and started to see like what was happening and you could get the hype off of it. He fell into that 80s to 100 range, that like 4th or 5th round pick, and he stayed there. I think what actually happened, Rico, is that we started to look at these other linebackers and we started to see that, yeah, DeMarvion Overshown, while he's a great prospect, he isn't anything special. You know what I mean? He is an older prospect who comes in and he offers a great combo of like size and speed, 6'3", 229, I believe. Let me see if I can find his 40 time. I don't have access to the 40 time relatively quickly, but like he did that. And so it's just one of those things where I don't look at him as a bad prospect, but I just don't look at him as a great prospect either. If we got him, I wouldn't be mad, but if we didn't get him, I wouldn't be mad either. Even though I said enough about the safety to linebacker converts, that's the one guy I would love, lol. Yeah, because he was a safety who converted to linebacker, right? Yeah. I would do another safety to linebacker convert, and I would take the BYU, not BYU, the Baylor, not the Baylor. What's his name? Give me a second. Pull up his name. Boise State. I would take JL Skinner. 6'4", 209. You tell him to add 15 pounds. I think his role at the next level is a linebacker, and I think that he would be so good because I think he's good enough to cover tight ends at the next level, and I think that he's more than a good enough tackle. Like you tell me, I think I see shades of like Tremaine Edmonds in JL Skinner. I love that guy. I think whatever team is going to take him, they should convert him to a linebacker. Unless a great value falls into their lap for linebacker, I don't see it happening. Everyone remembers JD was with the Ravens, but he was also with the Eagles. He doesn't value linebackers highly. Rico Sala valued linebackers, so JG just says to S. So you're both right, and in the sense of like, if we look at Robert Saleh's tenure and all of the places that he went, he found value at linebacker late. Like, it's a misrepresentation and understanding of where the New York Jets, and specifically where Saleh finds value in his players. He doesn't value the linebacker room. He doesn't even value the cornerback room. Up until last year, they hadn't had a first-round corner like at all. They value the defensive line. Everything is dictated by the defensive line. Everything is dictated by the defensive line. And so, like, I wouldn't be surprised if we took a defensive tackle and we just didn't take a linebacker. Like, that wouldn't surprise me at all, because you build your linebackers and your safeties can be covered up, and their mistakes can be covered up if the quarterback is on his butt. If the quarterback's on his ass, you can do whatever you want. Doesn't matter. And when you've got elite corners to cover up that mistakes that the safeties and the linebackers do, we had a top 5 defense last year. We had a top 5 defense last year with that linebacker room and with that safety room. And we got better. Like, we legitimately, we just got better. We brought back the same guys in the linebacker room, which is, again, that's not getting better, but that's maintaining the status quo. And remember that the status quo is, according to DVOA, we have the number 5 ranked defense in the NFL last year. So, boom. And then we got better in the safety room because we got rid of LaMarcus Joyner and added Chuck Clark, one of the better safeties in the NFL. Right? So the safety room got better. Now, if you believe, and a lot of people do, and I'm one of those people, that Tony Adams can be a guy and can be a good safety for the New York Jets. So now you're getting better at free safety, and like, you just massively improved, because you can't get worse than LaMarcus Joyner last year at free safety. Like, that's just not possible. Like, you would probably have the same level of results if you just ran 10 guys out there every play. Like, you can't get worse, but you can get better. And I think that Tony Adams in year 2 is going to get better. And so we got better at strong safety because we got Chuck Clark. Hell, even if you play Jordan Whitehead at free safety, which I'm okay with personally, boom, you still got better, because Jordan Whitehead was actually pretty decent in coverage last year. He wasn't great, but he wasn't bad either. He was actually kind of decent. And if you tell him, hey, you're going to be the free safety, and then Chuck Clark is going to be your strong safety, there goes your missed tackle issue that you see with Jordan Whitehead, because now he's not going to be really asked to tackle. He's going to be asked to cover guys and to really be part of double teams on the top end. Your safety room got better, and then your linebacker room stayed the same. And then, boom, your defense gets better. It doesn't include the fact that we're going to add guys like as well, like when it comes to the defensive line. Quinnen Williams is only going to take a step if we keep, and it seems like we're going to, if we keep Carl Lawson. Remember that the second year after the injury is the year. That's the year where everything changes. That's when they get their step back, and boom. There you go. Trenton Simpson, the dude is 245, strong safety disguised as a linebacker. That's a great point. That's a great evaluation of him. Yeah, he's so good in that run defense, and so good in that in that ability to like play up in the line and to do all that stuff. The problem is that Trenton Simpson is probably like a second or a third round pick, and we're not going to be taking a guy. I don't think we're going to be taking a linebacker that high. For me, if I was going to take a linebacker like high, like in the second round, my eyes immediately go to a guy like Drew Sanders out of Arkansas, because I think he's like really good in coverage, A Deion Henley, obviously. I love Deion Henley and just the speed that he plays with. And then I got a raging hard on for Jack Campbell. I loved me some Jack Campbell. If we keep both of our picks, I would use one of 42 or 43 on Jack Campbell. I would make him the first linebacker off the board. Like, just straight up. I would take him without batting an eye. Yeah, there's that. What's up with the Maple Leaf sweatshirt? Will the Leafs get out of the first round this year? I hope so, Peter. And I'm a Leafs fan, my guy. Been a Leafs fan for my whole life. Love the Leafs. We're keeping Lawson. Totally agree. Rightfully so. Totally agree, Dark Soldier. Rico, fans don't realize when you're picking that high, as we have in the last few years, you take the best guy and work around him. We don't need Sauce for the D to work, but he was the best. Yeah, he was the best player in the draft. And to think that, Houston passed up on him. There's that story that's been circulating recently. I don't know how much you guys follow the NFL. And I'm going to ask this question. I'm going to make this poll, actually. I'm going to create a poll. Give me a second, guys. I want to create this poll because I'm legitimately curious. And if you could vote for me. No. Poll. Start a poll. Boom. There's the poll, guys. I put it in there. And essentially would you guys be interested in more NFL content that wasn't necessarily Jets related? Now, it doesn't have to be on this channel. I've been juggling with the idea of starting a second channel that is more NFL based, that isn't just Jets content, because there are a lot of interesting stories around the NFL, and I have a lot of opinions about those things. And I would be interested in having those conversations possibly with you guys. And like I said, it wouldn't necessarily have to be on this channel, but let me know. I would be more than willing to start another channel, do all that stuff. Would you be interested in that? Would you guys subscribe if I did something like that? If I opened up a new channel, called it NFL with Tigo, or I don't know. Tigo's NFL Talk, I don't know. We'll figure something out. Boom. Going back. This is absolutely right, Rico, while you guys are answering that question. BPA, while people do, if people do what every fan wants, which is you draft based on need and you don't draft best player available, you end up overdrafting guys. You end up like the Las Vegas Raiders, who are massively overdrafting guys. And yeah. So that's the story there, right? You don't draft based on need. You draft based on best player available. Now, you adjust your best, because here's the other problem that people don't understand, is that big boards for us and big boards for NFL teams are two completely different things. An NFL team's big board is based more in buckets than it is straight up numbers. Right? They do number the guys within those buckets, but it's who are the guys that we consider our tier 1 prospects? Here are the 6 guys that are our tier 1 prospects. Then here are the 8 guys in tier 2, the 9 guys in tier 3, the 20 guys in tier 4, and that's how you build out your big board. Now, when you go into those tiers, you start ranking those players based on need. So, for example, let's look at the big board right now. Let's say you have, in tier 1, you have Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, Devin Witherspoon, Tyree Wilson, Broderick Jones, Christian Gonzalez, and Paris Johnson Jr., right? There's 8 guys that you have in this tier 1 bucket. These are the guys that if they're there, you're going to take them. And then you start ranking them. Now you can start ranking them based on need, right? And rightfully so. A guy like Devin Witherspoon and Christian Gonzalez should fall to the bottom of your needs of that tier 1 need chart, because we have 4 really good corners. But let's say all of the guys are gone and Devin Witherspoon is there and he's available at 13. You have to have a serious conversation about taking him. If all of the tackles are gone, if all of that stuff is gone, you have to have a serious conversation about Devin Witherspoon. And then you just say, like, we can turn a strength into a superpower, and if we can turn a superpower into an immortal god of a room, you have to take a look at doing something like that. Because now you can bump one of those guys into slot corner. Hell, just run 4 corners. You run 1 linebacker. There you go. You solve your issue. Like, now, I'm not saying that that's really what's going to happen, right? Because Broderick Jones will be there at 13, and the New York Jets are going to value offensive tackle more than they're going to value corner. But you get the point. You have to find a good balance between need and best player available, and that's why, like, you end up with, like, a pick that I'm super excited to see what happens in the draft is the Washington Commanders. Because the players that I foresee being gone by 16 are all the players that they would have wanted based on need. So what are they going to take? Are they going to take the tight end? That's a need, but not necessarily. Are they going to take the wide receiver? Again, not a need, but if it's the best player on their board, do they take an offensive lineman, even though the guys that might be there might not be able to play guard? There's a lot of that stuff that goes on there. You know what I mean? And, yeah, Jason Zayas with the Super Chat. Guys, Super Chat, skip the line if you want to do that. You can do it on this channel, a segment called Around the League with Tigo. Love Jack Campbell. He's my crush this year. I love me some Jack Campbell. I wish that the New York Jets would be able to do something along those lines. Like, I really, really do. But I just don't know if it happens. Honestly, I just don't know if something like that happens. One second, guys. Having to convince my wife not to eat expired cookies because she's pregnant. That's a great point. I might look into it, Jason. Like, there's a lot of I love talking football, and there's a lot of NFL teams out there, and I really, really want to look at like again, like, I want to talk about, like, the Houston Texans and their whole thing. Like, do you guys hear that the Houston Texans might fire their general manager after the draft? Boom, there you go. Like, so there's that. Boom. Jason's, I love me some Jack Campbell. I had to highlight it again. If you're going to do analysis on players, schemes, news in general, why not? Even if they aren't a Jet, I love football, so go for it. Okay, Rico will come. What made you a Leafs fan? So Hank G, the story, you know what? Hank G, I'm going to save this for story time. I'm going to talk about how I am if you look at my fandoms, I'm really, really weird because I'm a Jets fan, I'm a Mets fan, but then I'm a Mavs fan at basketball. I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan, and then I'm a Maple Leafs fan, and I'm a little bit all over the place when it comes to it, and it's all very interesting stories, and I'll do that for story time tonight. But I'll answer that question when we end the stream. Very interesting. Everyone loses, quality over quantity. I'm not sure what this is in regards to. Throw some fantasy talk in there too. Man, I wish I was good enough at fantasy to really talk fantasy at a high level. I am above average at fantasy. But there's so much fantasy content out there. I think we go tackle and center. You are 100% true. Would love Whippler. Yep, I'm on board. I'm on board with that too. Absolutely agree, Tigo. No matter the position except QB, you need to have that discussion. And it might not even be, well, we got to take that guy. It might be prepping to know who values that guy. Absolutely. That conversation needs to happen. A great example. So, you know what? I'll talk about it. This Sunday, we're going to be doing at 10 or 8 o'clock, I believe, 8 or 10 o'clock, this Sunday on the Buffalo Jet Fan channel, we're going to be doing a full first-round mock draft with 7 creators. It is going to be myself, Buffalo Jet Fan, Dom C of the Green Bean Jets Fan channel, Jeremy of Jets Chaos, Adam of Y2K99, Wicker Media, Chair Sports, New York, that whole mouthful of a name, Gunny of the New York Jets Situation Report, Nick Shine of the Proud New York Jets Fan. We're all going to be doing a full first round mock draft, and this is an excellent exercise that goes on that. And if you guys are also interested, let me get the exact date, because that's going to be just Jets fans. But if you're interested, on the 21st, so not this Friday, but next Friday. Well, this Friday is today. So next Friday, we're going to be doing, following this stream, it's going to happen during this stream, we're going to be doing a full first round mock draft where we're going to actually collaborate with other creators from other football teams. I've been working with a couple of guys to get this going, and I'm super, super excited. We're going to be doing a full first round mock draft. It's going to start at 10 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be myself, a gentleman by the name of the Cardinal Rule, fantastic Cardinals channel. I don't even like the Cardinals, and I watch his channel. A gentleman by the name of Lions Talk Live, obviously myself, After the Review Sports, Dynasty Live FF, and State of the Steelers. A bunch of really, really cool and interesting guys, and we're going to be doing some collaboration and doing that mock draft. That's next Friday. But with all of that shameless self-promotion out of the way, the thing that I wanted to talk about is that going through this exercise really brings the evaluation out for you. For example, I have the Buffalo Bills pick, and it's been really interesting putting on I am Brandon Beane, the Buffalo general manager. What do I need for this team to excel? What players am I in love with? And I'll give you a little bit of my strategy here. I think the Buffalo Bills are looking at the rest of this league, and they're looking at the Miami Dolphins are getting better, and their defense is getting better. The New York Jets are getting better, and they have a top 5 defense in the NFL, and they're about to add Aaron Rodgers. How can we get better so that we can stay top dog in a division where we're very clearly top dog now? And that's an interesting conversation to have. The same conversation is the same conversation I'm having about the Titans. The Titans are in a really weak division, and now I have to balance, do I mortgage the future for a quarterback? But the Jags aren't that far out of reach. I could stick and pick at 11 and take a guy that, can impact my team now. What is the best way to plan it out? And it's a very interesting exercise. I feel for you, because in the last 3 years, Jets blogs have popped up all over the place. Don't give up on this channel. You do a great job. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. Don't get much. Oh, I'm not saying about giving up on this channel. I would never. The Jets are my first true love when it comes to football, or sports in general. It goes Jets, Leaf, Jets, Leafs, Jets. They are. I started this channel for a very similar thing that you were going through, Peter, which is just like, I live in Florida. There's no one to talk to when it comes to football in my area, and I wanted to talk football. That's just it. I wanted to talk football, so I started this channel. It's actually because of a conversation that I had with Ryan when he was doing his call-in show, and I enjoyed having that conversation with Ryan so much I started my YouTube channel 2 days later. 2 days later, I started my YouTube channel. So there's that. Ron Weiss with the super chat. Being an ex-Marine, maybe do a show about how an ex-POTUS really, really loves our service members. Not like the skeleton that is in there now, lol. Ron Weiss, appreciate the super chat. And as a fellow, well, not ex-Marine, but I was an ex-sailor. Worked a lot with the Marines. I was a hospital corpsman. I get that, but I want to, and it's hard sometimes, but I want to try to not get very political on this channel at all. Because, again, I just wanted to be accessible. I wanted to be everywhere. I'm not going to do any of those those types of conversations. You can do and believe what you want. And, yeah, just be free. Just be you, man, as long as it doesn't impact other people. Jason Zayas with another super chat. I love you. We got to be open-minded. What if there's no tackle or defensive players available at 13, but what if QB Bryce Young is on the board? You can't pass. You absolutely can. I don't have a first-round grade on Bryce Young. I would take Bryce Young in the second round. Now, it has nothing to do with his ability and everything to do with the fact that I can't trust my franchise with a guy who's 5'10 and 180 pounds. I just can't trust it. The guy doesn't seem... I don't believe that he has NFL durability. Just don't. And here's the thing, Jason Zayas. There are 5 tackles that I feel comfortable taking at 13. 5. 4 if you don't count Peter Skoronski as a tackle. There are 5 guys that I feel comfortable taking at 13. And I would take any one of those guys before I take a quarterback. Now, if you want to talk about defensive tackle, if you want to talk about, wide receiver, if you want to talk about whatever, yeah. I get what you're saying, Jason Zayas, but if in a world where, every single quarterback is there at 13, I would still take I wouldn't take any of these quarterbacks because I wouldn't take any of these quarterbacks. We have Zach in that contract. We're not going to be able to get out from under it. I'm not ready to give up on that talent and ability. And honestly, if we do move on from Aaron Rodgers and we move on from Zach Wilson, at the same time, I would want to go back to the draft and go and address a guy, especially with the projection of the next couple of years when it comes to the quarterback draft classes seem to be much better than what we've had in the last couple of years. I would do that. I get you, Dark. No, I agree. I don't want to get super political on this channel. I have my thoughts. And if you want to have those conversations in private, I have no problem having those conversations. I used to be a political science major before I changed in computer science. I love talking politics. This just isn't the place for that. My DMs are open on Twitter if you want to have those conversations, and I'd be more than happy to have those conversations with you. I love talking it and having those discussions. But this is a Jets channel, not a politics channel. I would say go Jackson at this point. Nope. We need the offensive line way more. If you had your pick of the litter at offensive tackle, who's your top guy? Broderick Jones. Broderick Jones is the guy that I would take. Yeah. That would be the guy. That would be my top guy. Yeah, that would be it. It would go in order. At 13, I would go Broderick Jones, Anton Harrison, Darnell Wright. No. I would go Broderick Jones, Anton Harrison, Paris Johnson Jr., Darnell Wright, Peter Skoronski, Dwan Jones. I would go in that order. I would feel comfortable with any one of those guys at 13 in that order. Yeah. I talked about that earlier, Ron Weiss. I'm thinking about starting an NFL channel. We might do that after the draft and all that stuff. I might hold off on that and do it next season. I have a 10-month-old. My wife is pregnant with our second baby. I'm a full-time college student. So I got a lot on my plate. So managing the Jets channel is already hard enough. And so doing a Jets channel and doing an NFL channel and doing all that stuff would be a little bit much of an undertaking. But I totally agree with you, Ron. I love talking sports, and I would love to have a place to do that. But the only way that I could do that would be if I started making money with this channel, if I started making serious money with this channel, and then I could hire an editor. If I could hire an editor to say, like, I'm just going to hit record and then send it to you, and then you're going to manage the channel, and then we're going to split it 50-50, I would do that. But that's like, it'd be just so much work. I really wish I could do it. Good choice, Tigo. Comp Sci is much better than Poli Sci. Well, for Vane, the idea was I was going to go get my Poli Sci degree to go get my law degree because I wanted to practice law. And then my wife got pregnant and I couldn't justify being in school for the next like 8 years. And so I pivoted, and I had been doing like coding and stuff for a long time. And I have friends who work at Lockheed Martin. And so they were like, dude, if you can get your computer science degree, you have a job. So I was like, hell yeah. I'm going to go make some missiles and do all that stuff because I almost did that when I went into the Navy. Broderick Jones needs some serious coaching up. The guy literally headbutts people when he gets beat. I still believe in the guy, but he has an Andrew Thomas path, rough first year. Here's the thing, Rico. You're absolutely correct. But my order is not an order of what I think about these guys' ability. It's my projection of what I think these guys will end up being when you rank them as tackles 3 years from now. Remember that we're not taking an offensive tackle to start right away. I don't know if any of these tackles day one will beat a healthy Mekhi Becton or Dwayne Brown for their jobs. So if that's the case and the offensive tackle isn't going to start year one, which, by the way, does not change the reality that you should still take a tackle in the first round. If the expectation is that the guy isn't going to start year one, who's going to be the best player year two? And that's where the board shifts. That's where the ranking shifts, because now Paris Johnson starts to fall down boards because his projection is that he's kind of closer to his ceiling than some of these other guys, while Anton Harrison and Broderick Jones legitimately have the ability to be some of the best tackles in the NFL, and Darnell Wright has the ceiling of being, I think, hands down the best right tackle in the NFL. But they're all guys that are projected that need coaching. And I really like our coach in Coach Carter when it comes to our offensive line coach. And I think that those three guys with 1 year behind a 13,000-year veteran in Dwayne Brown and seeing his work ethic, a motivated Mekhi Becton, and then you add Max Mitchell, who I love and is a massive stud, and this first-round rookie, now you've got an offensive tackle room that I feel really, really comfortable with just in case one of them goes down and gets hurt. But the projection that you have to look at is year two. Remember that beyond this year, we only have one tackle signed, and that's Max Mitchell. We only have one guy that's under contract next year. Mekhi Becton, this is the last year of his deal if we don't pick up his fifth-year option, because we have until May 1st to do so. This is the last year of Dwayne Brown's deal, and those are the only tackles that we have on board. Max Mitchell would be the only guy that we have next year. And so that's why I have offensive tackle in the first round, and that's why my order looks the way that it does. It's my projection of what do these guys look like in year two, not in year one. And yeah. Has Johnson dropped down your list, or were you never high on him? It seems everybody is high on him. Xavier, everybody is high on him because he's absolutely a stud. But when you project, you have to take Paris Johnson as a starter. That's the thing. There's not much room for growth in his game. He's going to be a good tackle in the NFL. He's going to be a good tackle in the NFL. But my concern with a guy like Paris is he's kind of already a polished prospect. How much better can he really get? His hands are pretty good. His feet are pretty good. His base is pretty good. He's got average strength. He's average at all of those things. And does that mean that he can't be, when he gets to NFL and gets NFL coaching, that he can't be great at those things? Absolutely not. He absolutely can be great at those things. But I'm taking my bet when it comes to the guys at 13. And again, this is my ranking for the Jets, not my big board, when it comes to just overall players. For the Jets, Broderick Jones, Anton Harrison, and Darnell Wright provide you with way more upside in years 2, 3, 4, and 5 than Paris Johnson. Paris Johnson is going to give you way more upside in years 1, 2, and 3. And because I don't expect him to start in year 1, maybe even in year 2, right? If that's the case, then give me the guys who have more upside later on in their careers. I hope that answers that question. But great question, Xavier. Great question. Why isn't your picture showing up? You have a Deadpool picture. I can see that. But you're just an X. That's weird. If all the picks that we wanted were gone and he was the best option. What? Who are you talking about? You seem like an invited person to talk to. Thank you, Ron. I appreciate that. So what if you were to trade back and get one of those late first-round tackles and get a pick if none of these are better than a healthy Becton? That's absolutely an option, Xavier. The only player that I would stick and pick at 13, 100%, like 100%, I'm sticking and picking at 13 is Broderick Jones and Anton Harrison. Because I love those guys, and I don't think those guys are going to be available depending on how far you drop back, right? Like, if you're trading with the Chargers, let's say the Chargers are coming up for whatever reason, I would do that because Anton Harrison might be there. Darnell Wright might be there, and I feel comfortable with both of those guys. What happens if the Bills are the team that want to come up, right? And for some reason you're doing that trade. What happens then? Because I think 6 tackles are going in the first round. Like, that's a little bit more of a risk. Because, like, DeJuan Jones, I would only take if I'm on the back end of the first round. But, like, he's not... I would prefer one of the other guys. It's one of those things. It's one of those things. You're talking about Jackson. Oh, yeah. Look, I have no beef with Jackson Smith-Njigba. I think he projects as a really good high-volume wide receiver, too, at the next level. Imagine a not-as-fast Juju Smith-Schuster. That's the way that I kind of look at what his role and what his skill set might be. And so, yeah. But I just wouldn't use 13 on it. Wide receiver is a luxury, and I'd rather address that luxury with a veteran than with a rookie. Does that make sense? I don't want guys that need, specifically in the wide receiver room, I don't want guys who have to learn the NFL speed and the NFL game. If we're going to be going after luxuries, I want those luxuries to already be acclimated with the NFL speed and the NFL game, and that's why I look at like a DeAndre Hopkins as my new number 1 target in this free agency. Like, he's the guy that I want. And so, yeah. It's your boy. Trade for Baker, not D-Hop. If he's not wanting a major contract, D-Hop is not worth the cost it take to get him. So, it's your boy. I'm going to ask you to clarify a couple of things for me. 1, Buddah Baker has already come out and said that he wants to be the highest paid safety in the NFL. So now you're talking about a day 2 pick to trade for him, which is probably a 2nd or a 3rd round pick to go get him. And then you have to pay him $20 million. Is that worth it? Personally, I don't think so. Now let's talk about the D-Hop. To trade for D-Hop, you're looking at a day 3 pick, a late day 3 pick, right? Because of that contract. You're probably looking at like a 5th or a 6th round pick. And that contract is insanely manageable. You can get that contract down to $7 million this year if you wanted to. And then eat a big chunk of that cap hit next year when the Jets have a massive cap hit. So I disagree. D-Hop is a much bigger priority than Baker. I don't think the Jets are in on a safety, and I don't really think that they should be. I think that our safety room, as of right now, is more than fine. If a player falls in the draft that you fall in love with and you have to take him because Jordan Whitehead has no guaranteed money, obviously. But boom, there you go. So what you're saying is Paris Johnson is already close to his ceiling. Paris, in my estimation, Xavier, Paris Johnson is already is closer to his ceiling than some of the other guys, I guess is the best way to say it. Remember, these are all just assumptions, and everybody's talking out of their ass when it comes to draft evaluations. And so the way that I look at it is, if you need a starting tackle right now, Paris Johnson is the number one tackle in this class. He should be the number one tackle taken off the board. But the reality is, he's gone to Vegas, the Bears, or the Titans. Like, he doesn't make it to 13. Like, that's just the reality. But Broderick Jones, Anton Harrison, Darnell Wright, all of those guys have a chance of being there at 13. And I think that their ceilings are much higher. So there's that. I think JSN is a mix of Jarvis Landry and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't see the Amon-Ra St. Brown, but Jarvis Landry, that's a pretty good one. If they can give up maybe 2/4 and a 5th or a 6th, then I'd say that's great. For Buddah, that's way too much for Buddah. And then having to pay him on top of that? Again, I think Buddha's going to go for a 3rd. I think Buddha's going for a 3rd, and then he's going to want $20 million a year. I don't think you do that if you're the Jets. Like, this is the reality. I'm not, and it, again, this isn't an indictment on Buddah the player. He's insanely good and insanely talented. It's about the money. I don't want to pay $20 million to a safety. Safeties don't impact the game as much as they used to. Like, the irony is, as a sports star for an NIC team, Buddah probably be making bank and wouldn't have to be top paid safety. Hard Knocks endeared him to the nation. You're absolutely right. But it's the optics of it. He wants to be the highest paid safety in the NFL because he deserves it. He totally deserves it. Xavier, I'm going to come back to this. What about this in regards to Zach? I think Zach needs a reset. Once Rodgers is a Jet, how about they get a player like Bennett who might fall out of the draft and have him beat out Zach? One, Stetson Bennett would not beat out Zach. Stetson Bennett was about to get benched by Georgia. And Stetson Bennett is like 30 years old. So, like, while I'm not anti-bringing in an undrafted free agent quarterback, this expectation that any of these quarterbacks in this draft that aren't the first-round quarterbacks is going to straight up beat Zach in a competition, I think is, one, people overvaluing the quarterbacks in this draft and undervaluing Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson is insanely talented. And the problem with Zach is up here. It has nothing to do with his ability. Everything is up here. You're absolutely right. You get Rodgers, Zach gets his reset, and he gets to watch his childhood hero and how he plays and how he develops. And here's the kicker, Johnny. Actually have an offensive coordinator. Actually get a teacher in the building who understands how to develop a playbook for his quarterback. That is the key. You give him the second team reps, you give him the headset on the sideline, and you run it. Giving up on Zach because of the past 2 years have been bad, like that is a foolhardy, one, usage of assets, but two, like, you just need to be prepared that if you were to get rid of Zach, you have to be prepared for him to be a superstar in San Francisco, or if Kyle Shanahan for some reason leaves San Francisco, wherever Kyle Shanahan ends up, like, that's what you got to understand. Like, you know what's going to happen. Like, let's say the Jets cut Zach Wilson next year. Like, let's say that's what happens. You know for a fact that Zach Wilson is going to go to Miami and he's going to be a star because they actually have an offensive coordinator that is going to do good things. I mean, they have a head coach who's also their offensive coordinator who knows how to get the best value. Like, he's Kyle Shanahan Jr. That's the thing. Zach should not have been started immediately. And Rob Calabrese should not have been his quarterback's coach. Greg Knapp passing away was one of the biggest life-changing, career-altering moments of Zach Wilson's career, because Greg Knapp would have had Zach Wilson working, and I think that truthfully, 100%. So give him a reset. Give him the 2 years off that he needs, and then we'll evaluate him in his 5th-year option. And when the guy balls out, boom, I can say I told you so. And if he doesn't, come back, say, look at it, Zach sucks, and then we can all celebrate over the fact that we get Arch Manning. Like, there we go. Like, I am not willing to give up on him yet. And we can't get out from under his contract. You can't cut him. You can't trade him. Like, boom. There you go. If we sneak a firearm into his carry-on, Paris can fall to the Jets easily. Yeah, you probably. I don't think the Jets would take him. I still think they would take Broderick Jones over Paris. But yeah. What is your perfect draft? Trades up, trades down. My perfect draft would be none of the tackles get taken in the top 10. So that they're all there. Then, my perfect draft would be none of the tackles get taken in the top 12. So all of the tackles are still on the board at 13. You trade with. I have to look at the board. Give me a second. Tankathon, because I don't remember the picks in okay. You trade back to 17 with the Steelers so that the Steelers can come up and take Paris Johnson. Then the Patriots take Peter Skoronski. The Green Bay Packers take Jackson Smith-Njigba. The Washington Commanders take Dalton Kincaid so that you can then get Broderick Jones at 17 and get the Steelers' second-round pick, number 49. Because remember, they have 32 from the Claypool trade. The board goes at 42, you get John Michael Schmitz and or Steve Avila to be your center of the future. And at 49, you get Jack Campbell. You don't have a third-round pick. And then in the 4th, that would be, I don't want to go that far down. But that, to me, like your first 3 rounds, that to me would be an ideal situation. That would be perfect. If you went, and obviously you trade 43 away for Rodgers, right? So like trading back from like 13 to 17 or 19, still getting Broderick Jones at 17 or 19, accumulating another second-round pick plus whatever else that you might get, getting the center at 42, whether it's a Villa or John Michael Schmitz or Luke Whippler, whatever, and then Jack Campbell at like 49 or 50. For me, that would be the ideal draft. Boom. Good thing for us you're not drafting ahead of the Jets. Yeah, absolutely. Again, who's trading what? Right now, Zach has no value, Johnny. Just no value. Trading him away isn't going to make sense. And then you have to eat $10 million if you trade him away. He goes from a $10 million cap hit to a $20 million dead cap hit. You don't save any money from trading him away. You lose money. Who do you think would be a draft steal in the later rounds people are low on? Ooh, this is a great question. Servassier, this is going to be 3 Pittsburgh guys, which is, I think, hilarious that I'm about to say 3 Pitt guys. But there's 3 Pitt guys that I really, 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 really like this year. Give me a second. And they go Carter Warren, Israel Abanikanda, and Servassier Dennis are all guys that I am a big, big fan of in the sense of like their ability and what they can do and their upside. I really hope that the New York Jets get Israel Abanikanda late in the draft. And then probably a lot of them are like running backs, like Eric Gray out of Oklahoma is going to be a stud, like a stud. Muhammad Diabite, Diabite. I think he's going to be a really good linebacker at the next level. I think he's really good. And then when it comes to Nick Saldivieri out of Old Dominion, I think a lot of guys are sleeping on him, and I think he's going to be really good at the next level. Then when we look at cornerbacks, he's not getting a ton of love, but I love this kid, and it's Darius Rush out of South Carolina. I think he's going to be a slot corner at the next level, but I think he's going to be a stud. And, those are all the guys that I can think of right now. But Red John with the super chat, thank you so much. I would trade back. I don't think there are any special players except for Carter in round 1. Maybe drop back into the 20s and pick up a second and a third. I agree, Red John. If I could trade back, I wouldn't necessarily want to go back to the mid-20s. I think the farthest I would want to drop back is like 21, 22, like Seattle, Los Angeles with the Chargers. Like that would probably be the farthest I would be willing to go. Like just personally, maybe 22, 23. Like that's okay. 23 is the farthest I would go back. And so when we look at that aspect of how things are working and how things are going, like it would be really interesting. But like it all comes down to Red John. It all comes down to how many of the tackles are still on the board. I want to walk away in the first round with one of the top 4 or 5 tackles. So if 2 of the tackles are gone at 13, that's a problem. That's a big problem. Now, if one of the tackles is gone at 13, then I'm more willing to drop back. But we need to walk away with one of these tackles. Like it's such a desperate need, in my opinion, that you can't go without one. Johnny, I agree with you on that. I have never believed in just throwing the rookies in, let them sit back and learn the speed of the NFL. Absolutely. Like, dude, everyone benefits from that. Like, everyone benefits from that. We need to tout all the QBs. That way the flood of the top 10 picks with QBs, everyone on them is a superstar. Dude, I think this draft is going to be a very unique draft because I think we're going to see quarterback 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that I truly believe that. That being said, I can't get behind Hendon Hooker. I can't do it. I can't do it. I just can't. I can't do it. After watching the guy's tape, yeah, he's athletic and all that. I don't get it. I don't see why he's a first-round pick. I don't see why people are projecting him to the Ravens at 22. If the Ravens take him at 22, oh my God, what a mismanagement of assets. Like it's just so bad. So bad. I don't get it. Now, if you wanted to take Hendon Hooker in like the 3rd round, go ahead. Like I don't think he's gonna amount to anything in the NFL level. But oh my God, I personally don't get the Hendon Hooker love. If someone can explain it to me in the chat, like if you're a Hendon Hooker truther, if you can try to explain it to me in the chat, like objectively, not just, oh, I like the kid. Like what is it that you like about him? Like he's got a cannon of an arm. He's insanely athletic. I got that. But he's also 25 years old, coming off of an ACL tear, who just came from one of the worst college programs. And by programs, I mean in the sense of not like actual like win-loss or anything. I mean programs in the sense of translatability to the next level. Right? Like I just don't get it. I don't get it. Someone explain it to me if you're a Hendon Hooker truther. I remain adamant. Hunter Luepke will be a draft or UDFA steal. He will be a team favorite and a hammer at fullback for the running game with good hands. I don't disagree, but fullback just isn't touted that well. And we've got a pretty good fullback. Hey, you went to Old Dominion? That's cool. That's in Virginia, right? What player at 13 would help us the most this year? Ooh, Kalijah Cansey. Kalijah Cansey would be the player that if you were to take this year, he would have the biggest impact immediately. He would be the guy who's probably there at 13, who would probably give us the biggest impact right away. Yeah. I would even hear the argument for Brian Branch, but then you'd have to play Chuck Clark at free safety, right? Like that would have to be the idea there. There you go. There you go. I think center is coming in too at some point in this draft. I'd bet on it. Round 2, Anthony. Round 2. Hendon Hooker is a star. He should go at number 5. He's a QB that we don't need. He could save an O-line spot. There it is. There's NY Cursor had the best argument. Hendon Hooker now was a top 5 pick. I love it. The Steelers. Yep. Yeah. I only like Hooker as a developmental QB, not for the Jets, though. But this is my point. You're taking a 25-year-old developmental QB? I'm not talking about the Jets specifically, right? I don't want the Jets taking a quarterback in this draft at all. But, like, come on. 25? No to Branch at 13. I agree, NY Cursor. Like, I don't want Branch. I was just answering the question, okay? And it's a good question. What player would have the most impact? What player would be the most helpful at 13 right away? Would probably be Bijan Robinson, Kalijah Cansey, and Brian Branch. Those would be the guys that would immediately come in. I know where Norfolk is. I was almost stationed in Norfolk. Before I blew out my shoulder and my knees, I was on a Special Forces track in the Navy, and I was going to go do some Special Forces training in Norfolk. It was a temporary stop at Norfolk while in transition to go in Camp Lejeune in the Carolinas. But yeah, Lejeune? Yeah. Is it Lejeune? I don't remember. It was so long ago. ODU is in Norfolk, Virginia, near General Douglas MacArthur Museum. Did not know that. Look at that. There you go. Whew. Give me a second, guys. I need to take a breath. I need to take a sip of my drink. Fantastic. What if there was a surprise Jackson Smith pick at 13 and then a trade up into round 1 again? I don't think that... I don't think trading back into the first round is as far of a stretch as a lot of people believe. Joe Douglas might do it to get the 5th-year option on somebody. Like, you might be willing to convince Kansas City to jump out of 42 to go to 43, to go to 31 to get the 5th-year option on someone. Like, that could be a thing. But I wouldn't take Jackson Smith at 13. Like, what I would, for this scenario to happen, Anthony, I would trade out of 13 to 19 with the Bucks, get Broderick Jones at 19, and then use the picks that we got in the Tampa Bay trade to go from 42 to 31 to take John Michael Schmitz so that we have the 5th-year option on the center. That's what I would do. But I wouldn't take a wide receiver in the first round this year, especially not at 13. I only have one wide receiver with a borderline first-round grade, and that's Jackson Smith-Njigba. And I've got him as a late first-round pick. Like, his ceiling to me is like 18 would be the earliest I would take him. Yeah, 18 would be the earliest I would take him. There are other players that I think are far more valuable than JSN. Packers want 4 first-round picks this year and half of Woody's total net worth for starters. 100%. Don't forget that they also want Chris Johnston. They want the younger brother. just to be an assistant. Like, like an administrative assistant. Carnival has some cruises out of Norfolk. Look at that. Didn't know that. With our later picks, who do you think we get? Would we go get a linebacker, Henry or Sewell? I would love to get Henry or Sewell. My expectation is that we take a linebacker late. The real problem with projecting that, Johnny, is that I have no idea. Like, truthfully, I have no idea what the Jets' plan is outside of rounds 1 and 2. I feel really confident that rounds 1, 2, and 4 are offensive tackle, center, and defensive tackle. I feel insanely confident that that's how this draft is going to go. That being said, I have no idea what's going to happen in the 5th or the 6th. Like, I have no idea. And that's not including any trade backs. That's not including any trade ups. That's not including anything like that. I have no, outside of offensive tackle, offensive center, and a defensive tackle, I have no idea what's happening. I have no idea. And I don't know where it's going to happen. Because I could see us taking a linebacker in the 4th instead of the defensive tackle. I could see us taking a wide receiver in the 5th. Like, I don't know. I don't know, man. Chiefs Live. What's up, my guy? Less than 2 weeks now till the draft. We're keeping number 13, 100%. With later picks, this would also grab Dorian Williams out of Tulsa. Dom C says he's the best coverage linebacker. Yep. Love him. The last 2 Ohio wide receivers were successful enough to reflect positively on JSN. I think he'll go early for that reason. But in that same conversation, NY Cursor, because I agree with you, the last time JSN was crazy impactful was when those first-round wide receivers were also on that team. I'm just saying. Center and offensive line, offensive tackle, Skoronski, whatever his name is, but I see him going, though. Skoronski, I just project him as a guard at the next level, man. I don't know if he's going to be a tackle. I don't know. Wide receiver wouldn't be bad in the 5th? No, it wouldn't. I would love a wide receiver in the 5th. Again, I would love, like, DeAndre Hopkins more, so we don't have to take a wide receiver in the 5th. But, like, Jonathan Mingo, Trey Palmer, Ronnie Bell, Puka Nakua, Andre Ayoshivas, all guys that I'm big fans of. I would take them late in the draft. I like those guys. I like those guys a lot. I think Broderick Jones would be a good fit for y'all. That's who I'm hoping we take. I'm hoping Broderick Jones is a New York Jet. Have you heard that this year Rodgers could throw a touchdown to a first-round wide receiver for the first time in his career? He's never thrown a touchdown to a first-round wide receiver in his career. Let that sink in. Also, Devontae Adams not being a first-round wide receiver, it blows my mind. Blows my mind. Mingo's going to go day 2? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I don't think these wide receivers are going to go as high as everyone thinks they are. I think we're going to see 1 wide receiver in the first round, Chiefs Live, and then we're going to see like 2 in the second. Like maybe 3. You're going to see Jackson Smith go in the bottom of the first. And then you're going to go Quentin Johnson, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, probably as your second round picks. And then Tank Dell, Jalen Hyatt, Josh Downs. I don't know if I said him already. Cedric Tillman, Keyshawn Boutte, all going in the 3rd. Marvin Mims, Tyler Scott, Jalen Reed, Trey Palmer, Parker Washington, probably all going in the 4th. I think Mingo falls to day 3. Yeah, I think Harlan says it. Like, I don't think anybody's in love with this wide receiver class at all, and they shouldn't be. Rodgers throwing to Wilson is going to be epic. Dude, that first touchdown, I might crap my pants. when that happens, I legitimately might crap my pants. Alrighty, boys, girls, guys, gals, we're going to end the stream there. Nope. This team is going to be so stacked come week 1, and it's going to shock the league. I think we might drop less than 4 games this season. I think so, too. Who's your favorite late-round wide receiver? I know it's not great. Andre Ayoshivas. I love that guy. He's my man crush of the draft. I think he's so fast. I think he's so tall. I think he's so strong. He's got those things that you can't teach, and then the problems that he has in his game, like his route running and his like he body catches, are all things that you can coach out of him. I think that kid's gonna be under the right coaching. I think he can be a stud. So I love me Andre Ayoshivas out of Princeton. He's the guy I fell in love with. Which is harder to predict, first round of the NCAA men's basketball tournament or NFL first round of the draft, because both seem to have craziness we never see? I would say the first round of the NFL draft. And the only reason I say that is there is at least some level of science and predictability when it comes to March Madness, Greg Jankowski. But the problem is, like, we don't even know who the number 1 pick is going to be this year, let alone if the Texans are going to take a quarterback at 2. There's so much and then Vegas exists. And so do the New England Patriots. Like, it wouldn't surprise me at all. It wouldn't surprise me at all if the Patriots took freaking who's the guy who's got like a 3rd or a 4th round grade on him? Give me a second. I'm scrolling through the big board. Like, here it is. I would not be surprised if the New England Patriots took Joe Tittman at 14. Because, like, how are you going to predict what they're going to do? How are you going to predict what Vegas is going to do? Vegas is going to follow up is going to take freaking Cody Mock in the 1st. Like, I have no idea. No idea. ODU tight end Kunitz is a huge sleeper for tight end. I agree. Story time with Tigo so that we can end the draft. We're going to answer the story that we saw earlier in the draft, earlier in the chat about why am I a Leafs fan. I'm going to explain why I'm a fan of the teams that I'm a fan of. Last week before the draft will be all QB talk, happens every year regardless of the crop. Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. The Patriots with another Cole Strange pick. Absolutely, Xavier. Okay, why am I a Leafs fan? Why am I a Mavs fan? Why am I a Jets fan and a Mets fan? So let me explain. I was actually born here in Florida, right? But when I was 2 or 3 years old, my parents moved to New Jersey, New York, and we lived there until I was like 11 or 12. But the story of why I'm a Jets fan actually comes before that, when my father, who I will have on the stream one day to tell his side of the story, so I'm not going to go super in depth on it. But my father, for those of you who don't know, my parents are Brazilian. They are Brazilian immigrants. They immigrated to this country. And yeah. And so for those of you who don't know, I'm gonna pull it up so I get it right. In the 80s, give me a second. In the 80s, there was this wonderful, wonderful, horrible movie called Flash Gordon. And when Flash Gordon went to overseas to Brazil, my dad, in all of his glory and fandom, went to go watch that movie with his friends at the movie theaters a ton of times. And for those of you who don't remember, Flash Gordon was a football player who travels to a planet and tries to fight a tyrannical dictator guy. And if you had to guess, who was Flash Gordon a quarterback for? the New York Jets. And so my dad, when it came to understanding and knowing football, again, being an immigrant, he didn't know anything, but he knew about the New York Jets. And so when he moved to the States, he moved to Miami and living down there, and he was working construction, and there were two guys who used to live down in obviously down in Miami. They were huge Dolphins fans, and they were also Brazilian immigrants like my dad. No, they were Spanish immigrants? I don't remember. They were immigrants, but they were huge Miami fans, and all they used to do was talk about the Dolphins, blah, 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 the Dolphins. And it absolutely annoyed my dad because, one, he was learning English, and two, learning football terminology wasn't helping him learn English better. And so he got so annoyed. But the one thing that he could remember when it came to American football was that when he was a kid, he watched the movie Flash Gordon and that he was the New York Jets quarterback. So he, to piss those guys off, chose to be a New York Jets fan. And then he moved to New Jersey and then learned English and was able to watch the games on TV, and then became a real New York Jets fan, and then moved back to Florida. I was born. We moved back to New Jersey, and that's how I'm a Jets fan. So it has nothing to do with the fact that we used to live in Jersey or lived in New York and all that stuff. No, Flash Gordon is the reason I'm a Jets fan. And I've never seen the movie, but my dad watched it a couple of times in the 80s, and now I'm a Jets fan, right? So when I was younger, we moved around quite a bit, and we moved into a bunch of different places, and so it was really hard because when I was younger, I was a big soccer fan, right? I watched soccer and football, and that was it. And so how I started getting really interested in other sports. So what happened was I had no personal sense of pride for a city or anything, because I was born in Florida, then I lived in New Jersey, then I lived in New York, and after New York we lived in Florida again. I had no state that I could call my own. So the way that I picked my fandom was my parents took me to a Florida Panthers game. The first year, the Panthers inauguration year. And I fell in love with this idea of hockey. And so I started passively watching it when I was a kid. So all of that, blah, 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 right? And so what happens is time continues on, and I get older, and I say, I want to get into hockey. And I turn on the TV to try to find a hockey game, and unbeknownst to me, the Leafs are playing the Rangers. And I was blue was my favorite color at the time. Both teams had blue on their jersey, and I said, cool, I'm going to get into hockey. This game is going to dictate what my favorite team is going to be. So whoever wins this game is going to be the team that I'm going to support. The Leafs won the game, and I've been a Leafs fan ever since. I was 7 years old when that happened. So I've been a Leafs fan ever since. And then I was adamantly against basketball. But like I said, I'm a huge soccer fan. And I'm a Real Madrid fan. And when Luka Doncic, formerly of the Real Madrid basketball team, got drafted to the Mavericks, I said, I'm not a basketball fan. I'm a Luka fan. So then I became a Mavs fan. And that is the story. Oh, and then I had to pick a baseball team and the Jets and the Mets because, I wasn't going to pick the Marlins. That's dumb. Or the Rays. So, boom. And there it is. And yeah, they didn't win very many games after that, Hank. They lost a ton of games that year. But yeah, I've been a Leafs fan ever since. I'm a huge Leafs fan. Love the Leafs. I watch most of their games. Getting ready for round 1 of the playoffs against Tampa Bay. I want to try to catch a playoff game this year if we can, but it's hard, obviously. But yeah, there is the explanation of all of my fandoms. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you all for all the super chats. We've got a bunch of super chats today. This is great. Appreciate all of you guys. There's 41 of you in here And all of that stuff. Oh, and while we were on the stream, I didn't realize this. We hit 2,300 subs. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys, for hitting the subscriber button and to doing all of that stuff. Quick reminder, if you're watching this after the fact, 60% of you, 60% of the people watching this right now are not subscribed. What's going on? Okay? Hit the subscribe button. It's a really easy way to help the channel out. I would greatly appreciate it. I would love you long, Tim, if you did it for me. Thank you so much for stopping by. Wow. A majority of my audience is from the ages of 45 to 54. That's something that I would not expect. Look at that. Thank you again so much for watching. Thank you so much for hitting the subscribe button. If you liked the stream, a really easy way to show it is by hitting the like button on the way out. Thank you all so much for hanging out. Remember, this Sunday on the Buffalo Jet Fan channel, Jets content creators full first round mock draft. Be there for that. It's going to be so much fun. And then next Friday at 9:30, this stream goes live, and we're going to be doing another full first round mock draft. So be here for that. Be here. Make it happen. Guys, it's always fun hanging out with you. It's always fun chatting. Yeah, that's all I got. Thanks for hanging out. Go